All right. Welcome everybody to another episode of the Sons of Montezuma podcast. Today we are talking football. It's football season around the corner. I got my summer camp shirt on, and I'm excited. You know, it's been a long off season. Boy, what can you say? The media days is starting tomorrow in Las Vegas. And here in Aztec Nation, you know, we're starting to get the rumblings of a lot of breaking news today. We got mediations, we got expansion. Of course, we saw Texas State joining the conference in all sports a couple weeks ago. And, you know, talking hoops, Swish League. I know it's been a while since we've done a podcast, but Swish League has been going on all summer. That's been keeping us very busy, but now it's time. It's time to get into a little bit of football. Of course, Sons of Montezuma podcast. Make sure you guys hit that like and subscribe button before anything else. It's been a while since we talked football. I got to tell you guys, if you're used to seeing K5 James in here, my co-host, K5 James, I got to say, man, that guy is just aggravating the snot out of me. K5 James, if you're hearing this, oh boy. For those of you guys don't know, K5 James is actually my neighbor now. He's my next door neighbor. And so ever since he moved over, it's like I never see the guy. It's like he's avoiding me, you know. I think he's avoiding me, something like that. But I never see the guy. He's super busy. Of course, I don't know if he's protecting our borders from sea to shining. More like protecting our borders from pool party to pool party and doing his thing this summer. But no, you know, all love to K5 James. We'll get him back on the pod very soon. He's working very hard. So very excited to get him back in the fold and start talking some football on the regular. But today, you know, I've been trying to have our special guest on for quite a bit of time, and today we're finally going to make it happen. Welcome everybody coming into the stream. You know, like we said, Media Days is starting up tomorrow, so we want to get some football talk. But our special guest, you know, I've been trying to get him on the show for a little while. It's good to have him, and you guys may have seen some of his articles that he's written over time, the last few years. We'll get him to explain a little bit of that, but of course, on some of the Mountain West sites out there, talking Aztec perspectives on the Mountain West sites, and so I want to bring him in because we got a lot of topics on the table today, Aztec Nation, and he's been writing about the Aztecs for quite a bit of time. Welcome to the show, everybody, making the Sons of Montezuma podcast debut, Mr. Ted McGovern. What is going on, Ted? Good to see you all the way on the East Coast, right?
That's right. East Coast, baby.
East Coast Aztecs in the house. We really appreciate you joining. I know I've been we send each other messages from time to time. I can't remember when the last time it was that we actually saw each other in person. It had to be at one of the games, right?
It was one of the games. Yeah, I caught up with you while you were tailgating.
Oh, you saw us in full action tailgating.
Yeah.
Full action.
Yeah.
Well, Ted, let the people know, because I know they've seen your name across their computer screens. I know you mentioned the Mountain West Wire was one of the main websites, Mountain West websites that you were writing at, right?
Yeah. So just quick elevator. I graduated from San Diego State in 1996. I studied business and Japanese. I've probably written about 400 articles over the last 10 years, various iterations from, previews and recaps to player profiles to, season previews and football, basketball, and on odd occasions, I've even written about things like golf. San Diego State oddly has some pretty remarkable golfers, even though that's not my core focus. I started off writing for the Mountain West Connection. I was doing some fan posts, and they're like, "We want you to write for us." So I was like, "Okay," and did that for a number of years. And then when the editor jumped from there to Mountain West Wire, he asked me and 3 others to go with him. So I jumped, and Mountain West Wire had more resources, and it's associated with USA Today, and so wrote for them for maybe like the last 6 years, and pretty much was the primary individual that was covering Aztecs. So, I consider myself a super fan, but I've been, writing articles so long that I've been really in the weeds on football and basketball and other sports for a long time. And, the craziness of my life, writing about Aztec sports is one thing that I just really enjoy doing. So. Yep.
Talk about the craziness, man. And thank you for that rundown. That's great. That's great stuff. I mean, man, you're on the East Coast right now, right? Is that correct? New Jersey, I want to say.
Yep, I live in Westfield, New Jersey. It's the town that's famous for the Watcher House, and it's where Charles Adams was born, of the Adams family. So it's considered a spooky town. I'm about 25 minutes from from New York City, and there's a lot of nice things about that. I still get back to California a lot. I was actually in California 2.5 weeks ago at my friend Butch's second wedding. So we were up in Temecula in wine country, and I go back out west, and I feel like I'm going home, and it kind of recharges my batteries. But got a lot of good things going on the East Coast, and while I love to write, I've got different things to do in my life, and right now I've got 2 teenage kids. My daughter M is a sports management major. She's in the process of transferring from Syracuse to Clemson. My son Quinn is a sophomore going into his junior year in high school. So just trying to make sure that they're on an even keel. And at some point, I've given a lot of thought. I'll probably either relocate back to California or might buy a second home out there. So trying to figure that all out right now.
Good for you. Good for you. Well, now you guys got a little backstory on Mr. Ted McGovern. So let's get into it, because you're an Aztec all the way out there on the East Coast. What's up with us Aztecs fans? What's going on with us Aztecs fans? Of course, we're 2 diehards. Yeah. We're a tough crowd, man. We are a tough crowd to please. First order of topics on the table, right? Okay, the all whites. The all whites. We've been begging for it. So if anybody doesn't know right now, in preparation for the 2025 season, the Aztecs revealed new uniforms, a little twist on the Piedra del Sol uniform that we've been so fortunate to have. To me, they're a masterpiece. I wrote an article about these new uniforms, and just 10 years ago, can you believe it? 10 years ago when those uniforms came out, it was like the turning of a page, starting a fresh new take on the program, style of play. It was Rocky Long's probably in the middle of his tenure. The program was ascending, and they're just hitting the ceiling, just waiting to bust through that thing. They changed the uniforms, and all of a sudden we went back-to-back championships, 15 and 16. And so yeah, we've had those uniforms for quite a while, but we're never satisfied. We're never satisfied, Aztecs fans. We wanted the all whites. I know Pumphrey was on our podcast couple years back, and he was sharing about how the last time the team wore all whites was his game against New Mexico. That was like his breakout game, just as a freshman, true freshman. Came in, Adam Wimmer was a little banged up. Pumphrey came in and was just that spark plug in those all whites. It was so clean. What do you think of the new twists on these uniforms, the all whites, the name off of the front of the chest, it's gone? What do you think? I'll let you comment on that before I spill my guts.
Well, before I even get into that, let me preface by saying that I think like the Aztec helmet is insane. I think it's so great, Aztec calendar, and I'm glad they didn't touch that. That would have been that wouldn't have been good if they would have changed that up. I think that's probably, if not the best, one of the very best helmets in all of college football. No doubt. The other changes, I'm still digesting them, because full disclosure, probably like in the last 24 hours, it's the first time I really noted that they made the big change. I knew something was in the works. I saw some blood in, blood out embroidery, which is probably hidden on the inside of them somewhere. But it's a little bit to digest. And the bright red collar, it's bold. It's pretty bright. And I think it looks sharp. I think there is a little contrast between that and some of the other sort of red and black, Aztec calendar texture that you find, in a few remaining spots. So, it's good. I like the fact that we're changing things up, though, because, if you keep things the same for too long, they do start to get stale. So,
yeah.
So I think it's bold. I think it's even more bold, though, that they got rid of the name altogether. And at first, my first impression was I didn't like that. However, I get the sense that, they want us to be iconic. And I'll say this, iconic teams tend to do that. And I'd say that if we're playing at a level that we deserve that recognition, I'm all for it. But at the same time, as we try to increase our national profile, I do want to make sure that people don't tune in and they're not quite sure who's on the field. I mean, I guess you're going to see the Aztecs down, on the score bar, but I don't want us to be, so pretentious that we think everybody knows who we are before we get there, because we've had 2 back-to-back rough seasons, which followed up a good many excellent seasons, seasons where we in and out expected 10 plus wins per season. So I guess what I'm saying is I think that I'd like for us to play at that level where we deserve recognition, where we wouldn't put our name on. I think that character's about how you perform, not necessarily what you look like. And I think image minus ability is being character versus having character. So I just want to make sure that if we're making these bold moves, that we back it up with killer play.
No doubt.
I like the uniforms though, and I think coming out with a new look in the fall is great. I do like the all white, and I agree with you. It'd be awesome for us to do some modification to the helmet so that we look like like Aztec stormtroopers out there. That would be very cool.
Life's too short not to have some fun. You got to have fun in the program. So, hey, a nice little tweak here. I love the collars. I think it's a little more professional looking, a little, like you're saying, a little more iconic as far as the blue bloods, the big boys in college. You don't have to pronounce, exactly who you are. People can see your uniform and recognize, hey, that's iconic. Those are the Aztecs. They're coming in with that helmet.
Yep.
Enough said. So, hey, 2 thumbs up for me. Of course, there's always room to grow. I think in the future, I'm hoping they have a little bit more fun. I think with the Aztecs, with that name, with that mascot, with that moniker, whatever you want to say, representation. There's a lot of different things you could do culturally. The Aztecs, the culture itself, it's visually appealing in so many different ways. So,
yeah.
Hopefully it's a start.
We're the only Aztecs. There's a lot of Bulldogs. There's a lot of Aggies, but there's only one Aztecs.
Yeah, one too many Aggies out there. Okay, let's change topics. Let's get down the list, because I know I put them on the table for you. Texas State, as we all know, it's almost been a month since they've joined. Have they worn off on all you guys yet? Have they worn off on you? They're like the Pac-12's media darlings this last month, Texas State, and for good reason. They in a way we gave them a lifesaver, and in return they've kind of saved our butts in the Pac-12 as well by making us legitimate, right? It's just one of those marriages, right? It's one of those things you merging together, and it's going to be a beneficial thing for both of us. But I appreciate what I've seen from Texas State since their announcement of joining the Pac-12. I also really appreciate what I'm seeing from the rest of the Pac-12 schools, really extending that arm and welcoming them in. I know I was making a little fun in the last episode as far as back the pack. It's a little corny to me. There's no real loyalty. Any of us would jump ship if we got invited to the Big 12 or the Big 10. That's not even a question. Mm-hmm. The Pac-12 is something new, and we're going to get into mediation in just a second, man. But the Pac-12 is something new. I like what I'm seeing with Texas State. Breath of fresh air. It may not be the ultimate desired team that we wanted to add on, but I think there's room to grow, and I like what I'm seeing. One in particular thing, and I'll get specific, Ted. I like what I'm seeing from Boise State right now, and it pains me to say that, Ted. It pains me to say that. Yeah. But I really do. I like what I'm seeing from Boise State. You're not going to argue with anybody. Nobody's going to argue with you that San Diego State is the premier basketball team in the Mountain West. And now in the Pac-12, it's us and Gonzaga, right? Nobody's going to argue that. Nobody's going to argue that. Yeah. But when it comes to football, you got to admit it. Boise State, they're the leader in football in the Pac-12. And I'll say that even with Oregon State. I'll say that even with Washington State coming in. So my whole point on that is I like what I'm seeing from Boise State. It seems like they've really taken a leadership role, being that big dog in football and being visual out there, embracing Texas State and really doing a good job of like, hey, let's sell this thing. Let's promote Texas State. Let's promote everybody else, and kind of taking that leadership vocally. I like to see that. I wish I saw a little bit more of that from the Aztecs, but it is what it is.
Yeah. And I'm with you there. I am super excited about the Pac-12. Nobody should ever forget that San Diego State and SMU got an invite to the old Pac before Kliavkoff completely crapped the bed, pardon my language. And, so we're more than just a supplement and augment there. I think we have a bigger job, in that we kind of have to make our prestige. I think we will. I actually think that we're going to eventually kind of reach Power 5, with possibly a few additions as well as some, improved play, increased intensity from the programs that are on there. We're already there with basketball. With football, if Washington State, Oregon State, Boise State, and us, if we can get our act together, and if we bring on a Memphis or bring on, Powerhouse, I really think that kind of puts us right there, maybe the 5th of 5, but I think that kind of slides us into the power range as opposed to the G6 range. And I'm a believer. So, but with Texas State, kind of a mixed bag. We needed them so that we would become a bona fide conference. And you can't overlook that. And we are now. And just by virtue of the fact that they're on board, now everybody knows we're for real and we are up and running. Hard stop. I think that, whether we're P5 or G6, however the chips fall, I think we're actually somewhere in between, as Teresa Gould has touched on. And I think that Texas State, you hear a lot about potential. Potential is a funny word. It's what we can be if everything works out well. I do think they have good potential, but at the very worst, I consider their venues to be very good. So even if they're like the San Jose State of the new Pac-12, at least we'll look good if we're kicking their butts, in their stadiums and on their courts. And, I do think they have the resources to really grow their program. And, a program like theirs, they could always upgrade their coaches and suddenly they're very, intense. So I think they fit. I think they're a good addition. I think they can either just be a filler or enhance the Pac-12. It's sort of, it's the destiny's in their hands. At least they have the chance. And I think they give us the traction we need as a conference so that we can, like I said, go out and add more quality teams. So I'm okay with them. I'm at peace with them. I think they're going to be all right.
We are at peace. We are at peace with Texas State. Yep. Yes. I like it. Okay. Let's move on to the next topic because, the Texas State, that's almost about a month ago. We'll get into that. They seem like a cool fan base, so I want to reach out to some.
I do have to say one thing. They tout themselves as a party school, and I got to tell you, the early 1990s when I was at San Diego State, I don't think they could have held a candle to us. And I think maybe Arizona State was kind of on the level as us, but nobody partied like San Diego State. Nobody, So they've got some stiff competition there too. I think even today.
Yeah, they there's no way they can compete with PB or the Gas Lamp or anything like that. No. But they're definitely, as a campus, that's what I hear. But we'll get out there. We'll get out there. Believe me, Sons of Monty Crew will be out there. We'll put it to the test.
Awesome.
Okay, let's actually talk a little bit of Aztecs football because all this stuff surrounding San Diego State and the Mountain West and the Pac-12, all that stuff. We'll get to that in a little bit as well. But let's actually talk some football, Ted. So coming up is the final year in the Mountain West. Now, you were a writer, like you said, at a site that was really centric on the conference. It was well-rounded, all different teams, all kind of different authors, all kinds of different news. When it comes to looking at this final year, man, a lot of people saying in basketball, let's burn it down on the way out. Let's burn it down. And I think in basketball, this is that's the motivation, right? I think of this, one of the motivation factors of this year is to really put your stamp on this season. Of course, the loaded team that we have, but with football, okay, this is going to be a tricky season. T-Mac said in the chat, and we'll get to all the comments in a few minutes. But T-Mac said, I don't really know what to expect with this team. And Mountain West Media Days are tomorrow. So any of you guys watching in Vegas or going to be tuning in to Vegas, it's going to be interesting to see all these different representatives, two players from each team and the head coach gather, and they go through all the questions, all the preseason favorites and the preseason picks for offensive player of the year, defensive player of the year, all these accolades or, preseason picks. But this is the last year that we're going to do this in the Mountain West. When it comes to this team, a lot of question marks, but there's a lot of ability on this team. I think we saw last year, they were in almost every single game. I think maybe except the Boise game. Every other game, there was a chance. There was a fighting chance. Just got outlasted, outbest in certain categories. This year's team, a lot of talent. I'm not sure as far as the depth goes, right? And a lot of question marks at the quarterback spot, the biggest position on the field. We got 2 incoming quarterbacks that are going to be challenging for that starting spot. Of course, there's other quarterbacks as well. They're going to give it a go. But the transfers, Jaden Denigal and, of course, Berta Manners Jr. coming in, fighting for that quarterback spot. That's going to be number 1. On the defensive side, a lot of the players are coming back. Almost the whole defense is coming back that could have came back. Anchored, of course, by Trey White, Tano Latuli, Mr. Butler out there, Eric Butler out there, and secondary's loaded. So, I mean, a lot of question marks. We're not going to get into our preseason picks here. That's not our intention to talk right now about. We still got fall camp, a lot of things to digest. But how are you feeling coming into this media days, Mountain West media days? I mean, what do you say at a media day?
I don't know. I have so many head scratchers about this fall season. I've been anybody that might have seen me either comment or post information. I have a lot of Sean Lewis has me scratching my head, and he's making a lot of changes. He's swinging the big bat, and if you're a leader, you have to do that. But I think we've got all the ingredients for success, but you could have all the ingredients for an excellent meal, but if you cook it wrong, you're going to end up with slop. And so I think that this year it's going to be extremely critical for Sean Lewis to show the Aztec Nation that he is the coach that he is expected to be. And I think he's been given all of the resources in the world to pull it together. I think he has to exercise good judgment, and when his course of action isn't working, he needs to be able to recalibrate. And that's what I'm going to be looking for. I don't want to get, too far into prognosticating. I have a lot of question marks about the trajectory. And I'm hoping that, this fall we come out like, guns a-blazing like a bat out of hell and just floor team number 1 and just keep that momentum going. But it all comes down to, Lewis is the conductor and he's got to make great music. I think that he's a young guy, and I think that football is an old sport. And while there's a lot of new ways to approach things, I think it's a sport where, deep experience goes a long way. And, I'd like to think that the best thing that happened to him was getting his teeth kicked in with a 3-9 record last year, and that he's just been chewing on that with a chip on his shoulder. And I hope he's just hell bent on showing all of us that he's exactly who we expect him to be.
Okay, that sound comes on for T-Mac because he did give us that super. Appreciate you, T-Mac, for that super chat. He says, I don't know what to expect from this season. I can't handle another bad football season. Now, I will say this, Ted. I want to piggyback on what you're saying. I was there for that final home game, and seeing Coach walk off that field on that final home game. I made sure I was one of the very few that lingered around up there at that scoreboard bar. Me and the fellows, we were watching down on our perch. And boy, I took notice of Coach's demeanor. And, he was taking it all in, that final loss. And you could visually see the dejection on one hand, but you just knew the wheels were turning. That resolve was that self-talk. I can't imagine what was going on through his mind, but just he was really pausing, observing everything, taking it all in, taking account of the empty seats, taking account of those seniors that last time, shaking each other's hands, the last time that they're on the field. Yeah. And, I can only read into it, but just he lingered out there for a long time. He waited for almost every player to get off the field and into the locker room. So you know that is sticking with him all summer long. Now, one of the things I do like that he did as far as bringing in transfers, as far as, all the different position stuff, you heard him talk about it. Size matters. We want to be big. We want to be physical. Like what you said, football is an old game, man. It's an old game. If you're big, you're going to knock somebody over. You got to hit, you got to block, you got to tackle. Those are the first things, the basic things of football. And I really think he's trying to address those issues. Not even issues, but, just he wants to beef that up, bulk that up. So I do like that. Size, you can't teach that. You can coach it, though. You can coach it up.
Yeah. No, you're right. The one thing that's important for me with him as well, though, is I want to make sure that, if he's brought in to be, an offensive, resource for us, that being his strength, he's got to make sure that as he builds that up, that we don't make a backslide with defense. And obviously size and experience matters there, but he also has to take advantage of the benefit of the, of Hoke and Long before him, both of whom were, as far as I'm concerned, defensive, masters. I mean, they really were. And, sometimes I think about the fact that right now Rocky Long is teaching high school football, and I'm like, bring him back. I know he's moved on, but I loved Rocky Long. I thought, he made no bones about what he's doing. We're going right down the middle. We're running downhill all day, and my defense scores, so you better watch your ass. And, with him, we expected 10 wins. And I want to get back to that. And I want to make sure that Sean Lewis does not lose what we as an Aztec, football organization had with defense. We can't lose that. So while he's building up the offense, he has to make sure he's not doing it at the expense of our smash mouth defense. And we are running back you. We don't want to lose that either.
Yeah. Hey, that's a complaint on the chat. Hey, he didn't play his backups. We'll get into that when it comes to Mr. Lucky Sutton. That's one I think
with all of his backups, that's important to keep them interested in the program. If they get no play time, they're gonna ask themselves in this era of transfer portal, what the hell am I doing sitting on this bench all day? And that's, he's got to take that very seriously and make sure they're getting some time.
See, I think I'll push back a little bit on that, though, because I think he does. I think he's very well aware of it. I think us as fans, we kind of look at it and like, well, they're not getting any playing time. One of the things that we saw with the spring game, not a lot of people were happy with the spring game, Ted, out here. Boy, they were not happy. And I prefaced this episode, guys. I told you guys, Aztecs fans, we're a tough crowd. We're a tough bunch.
That was a head scratcher.
We want to complain about everything. But that spring game was purposeful. Mm-hmm. It was purposeful. He did it on purpose, right? He wanted to hide some of his players, and so they didn't get poached from the transfer portal. I think last year was a very similar situation as well. In terms of, I'm just going to say it in my opinion, in terms of Lucky Sutton, I think he didn't get the carries that maybe we all would have wanted to see, because you want to make sure you got that guy next year when you're starting running back who you knew was out of eligibility after last year. So it was one of those things. He brought over his running back, made sure he had a big year, got almost every carry. It is what it is. It's done. Now we turn in the page. We got Lucky Sutton, he's got to be ready to just run out of that gate and just put it on whoever the defender is and coming in the way. So that's my take. I think he's done it with purpose. Now let me switch gears a little bit, because you're talking about the spring game. You're talking about being mindful of all these different things. I think looking at last year, it was obvious this team, it wasn't on the same page. Coming in, different transfers, new coach, it's tough to really get that locker room to just mold together the way you want it. Arguably, you could say there was more offensive juice last year than what you're looking at the roster this year. I mean, you had experienced guys at receiver last year, experienced running backs, tight ends. You had some offensive linemen with some experience come in. The injury bug really got the best of the offensive line last year, but the quarterback was the really only unexperienced area there was. But you had a little bit of a gunslinger there with with our quarterback last year. But hey, this year is going to be a little different. And I think his approach has really been, let's get these guys to really not so much buy into me and the hype, but to buy into each other. That spring game, they were out there playing those games and doing what they were doing. But it was, if it pays off in the end, camaraderie wise to the team, screw the fans, screw everybody else. And I put it out there. I said, hey, they're trading fans for wins in that spring game. If they felt like that's what they had to do to get that camaraderie tight within that locker room, the fans, they can wait. It's not what I like, and we'll see if it works. But I think that was the approach, personally.
There's got to be some method to his madness, and but what you can't do is trade fans and not win. I think I'd like to think Lewis is going to surprise us. As I said, I've been critical, but I think he's going to surprise us. I just want to make sure that, as he spools up as a coach, and starts to, gain more momentum, that he does know that we are, we have big expectations. I think even, in the Rocky Long years, and I think even when we were winning 8 games, people were like, it's not good enough, and I think that Lewis just needs to know that in order for us to be who we are, winning has to be part of that formula. It's not like, an all out great effort, we came close, but we didn't quite get there. It cuts it. We've got to win. It's where it's at. And I think he's got all the ingredients, and I am going to buckle my seatbelt and hopefully be pleasantly surprised.
Okay. Well, one of the main ways that, I think the program has shown that they're committed to winning, in my perspective, everybody's got their own take, right? We talked about it, Ted, off air. The hiring of their first general manager, right? I label him the kid GM. The kid GM, right? He's not a rock star GM like Preller just yet, but he's a kid GM, 26 years old now. I think he was 25 when he was hired. But boy, age ain't nothing but a number when it comes to the first GM at San Diego State. I mean, what can you say? Caleb Davis came over from Notre Dame. He was the recruiting coordinator. Now, It doesn't get much bigger than Notre Dame. It just doesn't. So the pedigree is there. He was at Cincinnati before then, just a lifer when it comes to this football business. And that's what it is. He's not a coach. He's not a athletic director of any kind of sort, but he's obviously got a mind for the game. I've seen some specials dedicated to him on the local news, kind of looking at his day, his philosophy, all that stuff. And I'm with you, man. It's kind of a hopeful thing, right? Because somebody's so young they've proven their abilities elsewhere, but this is a whole new role now. I mean, this is a GM. So you're looking at like a big spectrum. It's not just recruiting, it's NIL management. It's taking the load off of Sean Lewis's plate as far as all those things, interacting with the players, setting them up for success. Building a team is really what he said. And I like this quote. He says, I'm trying to build a football team, Caleb Davis, right? I'm trying to build a football team, not just a collection of talent. There's a lot of talented football teams that lose games because the team doesn't fit. Now, that's Caleb Davis's words. Exactly. That's a quote. So, I'm seeing in the chat, Eddie O, what's going on? He says, this, some of the guys on this team aren't exactly the fit to run this offense. Big guys, they're not necessarily going to go fast. Aztecs fast, right? So there's a lot of different things at play, a lot of different philosophies. Hey, who adapts, who fits these positions better? With Caleb Davis, it's got to be a long-term investment. Does it have to be? I mean, so young, you feel like, hey, let's plug him in. We're riding it out for the long haul.
It's, he's young. And I think that, God forbid, he sets the world on fire. Some Big Ten or SEC program is going to try to poach him in a New York Minute. And that's one of the drawbacks of youth. There's no substitute for experience, but at the same time, I think what we're dealing with, having a GM on a college team is kind of uncharted territory. It's a reason that, Nick Saban hung it up. The game's changing and he doesn't like the way it's going, but it doesn't change the fact that if you want to play competitively, you've got to adapt. And so, I think having a GM as an adaptation, if this whiz kid has hung around the locker room at Notre Dame and has been able to glean, some pro tips and from some of the best, that's not the worst thing. I just want to make sure that that this wasn't just a unilateral pull by Lewis. That that Wicker spent a lot of time with him, make sure he's a good fit for our program, and I think it enables Lewis to focus on football. I think it's another wish granted to Lewis, which means that he should be able to focus more on winning. And I'd like to think that Caleb Davis is going to really turn heads, and people are going to be like, wow, this guy's really making things happen. I also wanted to make sure he wasn't somebody's grandson or nephew, because sometimes when people find themselves in senior level roles, and I don't care what anybody says, if you're a general manager, you're a senior level member of our football program, want to make sure he's got the chops to back it up, not just that somebody said, hey, this is my nephew-in-law, put him in the role. And I don't think that's the case. I think he's got it, but he's young, and when you're young, you haven't figured out a lot of things in your life yet. And I've managed people in what I do for a long period of time, and at some point I was not hesitant to hire anybody before 30, but I knew if I did, they were probably going to be gone in 3 years. And so our question is, do we want Caleb just so that he could be part of the base architecture of this new role, or are we looking for him to be a long-term sustainable person in the program? I would say that no matter what his aspirations are, anybody that coaches or is part of our program at San Diego State, there aren't many places that are more enjoyable to get up and go to work than San Diego. So that's always like an extra feather in our cap as Aztecs, is that it's one of the most beautiful places in the country to go to college or to be, part of a sports program. So, I do hope that, if he comes in and he's got chops and he really does good things and really helps us, really build and enhance our program, that at the same time he discovers that he really likes San Diego and he wants to be there for a really long time, because there's nothing worse than building somebody up and giving them the resources to succeed, and as soon as they have them, they go somewhere else. And I'm hoping that that's the one concern I have about his youth, is that my God, they could call him up from Bama and say, we want you tomorrow, and we want him to stick around, or anybody that we bring in.
Boy, ain't that the college sports world these days with transfer portal, NIL. I mean, coaches have been doing it forever. You get hot, you're out, you're taking the next job. So, I mean, it's all across the board now. So I love what you're saying, though, man. I love what you're saying. I think he does. I think he does love San Diego. There's nothing not to love about San Diego.
What's not to love?
Well, okay, there's a couple things. Oh boy. Okay, guys, we want to take a quick break in the action. How are your lips doing, Ted? You talking? You keeping up? You doing well?
I talk a lot. I'm used to talking, so I'm good.
Guys, I just want to share with you guys. I want to encourage you guys to go check out sonsofmontezuma.com. Of course, got to put my plug in there, and hopefully you guys are checking out the shop, checking out the online shop where we got 15% off. You guys see it up there in the corner. Using that promo code MONTY, you guys can save, I want to say 15%, something like that. But anyways, you guys take a look at the shop here. We got a couple new items going on here. Of course, the footwear. I had some Chucks out there, and some of the ladies would say, hey, you got lady sizes? Let's get the lady sizes going on, because gotta be across the board for everybody. Those Chucks, some of my favorite shoes to wear summertime. And well, I'm very, very proud on these shorts. It's short season, summertime. Go get in the water. Go get your swim trunks on. They'll be a good fit. No modeling poses. I try to get Fiend to wear some shorts, but he declined. Mike Tortolot as well. He said no, not going to do it. So hey, sonsofmontezuma.com. Check out the online shop. Save 15% off using the promo code MONTY. It's how we support this independent venture that is called sonsofmontezuma.com, where we are completely independent. Everything earned, nothing given. That's what we do here, and that's what we're going to keep on doing. So that's my little spiel. I'm sticking to it. Okay, let's move on to a big one that everybody is talking about today, Ted, and that is the Mountain West Pac-12 mediation, right? Let's get into it because our future is at stake. It's at stake. Tomorrow is going to be a very awkward media day if Mountain West officials are there. I believe Gloria Navarez is going to be, of course, having her, what is it, like a state of the conference address or something like that. She's going to get up there. She's going to have her assistants behind her, giving the head nods of approval and thumbs up just to make the optics look good. But everybody's freaking out. I think everybody's kind of freaking out. They've tried to mediate together to avoid going through with the actual trial and litigation and all that stuff. And they've come to, well, a roadblock. They can't agree on it. The Pac-12, they don't want to pay all these poaching fees that they really did agree to in the contract. Those Oregon State and Washington State, as far as hey, we'll play you guys this 2 football seasons and we promise not to steal any of your teams. Well, now they're saying it's unlawful to make us stand by that agreement. It depends what the judge is going to say. I mean, now that they've come to this stalemate, he's basically going to say, okay, get back in there and make a settlement happen because, I don't believe you guys. Now, the Mountain West added Grand Canyon last week. I want to say that was like a big turning point. It got a lot of Pac-12ers upset, like San Diego State, like Boise State. Everybody got their, boxers in a bunch, and they're not happy about it. It messes with scheduling. It messes with revenues coming up in this final season. It just puts a platform. It gives Grand Canyon a platform this final year for that transition. It's a smart move for the Mountain West, if you ask me. It's going to give them that transitional platform.
It's a smart move depending upon what their goals are, I guess you could say.
Mm-hmm.
It's a wrench for the outgoing teams. And, the fact that it went this long tells me they didn't find a win-win intersection, or some, common ground. And I get the sense that neither is yielding. I think that I think Gould has the money that the Mountain West expects. And I think because of that, the PAC actually has the upper hand. And I'll be very careful how I phrase this next part, but I think women leaders have to be tougher than their male counterparts. I think that they're in an industry where they could easily be marginalized, so they have to be tough. And I think that toughness probably doesn't help in the negotiation. I've gotten a sense from both, Gould and Navarez that they're both, no nonsense, very, very tough, iron ladies, if you will. I think finding an amicable resolution is actually the best outcome for both of them long term. But I think they both have to take a step towards each other. And I think that that's where the challenge lies. I think that a big problem is that for the Mountain West to honor, their agreement with the Air Force and UNLV, I think they need all of the money that they expect. And at the same time, I don't think they're going to get all the money. I think I've always thought that they'll end up with half of the money, that or even less. You might see the poaching fees eliminated and the exit fees cut in half. I think that that's probably going to be what is going to get them to some type of an agreement. But I think if Navarez has pledged that money to other people, she's going to fight relentlessly to get it. And I think that that's going to be a losing battle. Grand Canyon might actually lessen the burden because I do think they've got very deep pockets. I think they bought their way into the Mountain West, bought their way in a year early, I think as a part of their strategy to be perceived as a legitimate university versus a for-profit online university that just goes out and just scoops up, wet behind the ears students without having to necessarily put up the bricks and mortar to give them, an actual classroom. I think they've got a treasure trove. And I think years ago, I really marveled at the fact that they had Dan Marley as their head coach. And then I even marveled even more when he was doing great things for them and they still fired him because they expected even more. There is one other, very inconvenient truth about Grand Canyon. And that is that in recent years, our record with them is 1-4. And I think that really bothers Dutcher. I think that really bothers, Leon Rice, as well as anybody else who's going to the PAC, because I think there's a very realistic possibility that this year, Grand Canyon, as a member of the West, we end up having to play them once or even perhaps twice, and those are very hard games for us, where Grand Canyon has everything to gain and we have everything to lose. And I think with the Aztecs, having been a charter member of the Mountain West, I think it's kind of pardon my language, a dick move by Navarez to bring them in a year early. But I think that Grand Canyon is actually giving the Mountain West revenue that they need. I think in exchange, though, they're getting more than a typical member would get. So it's kind of precarious, but all in all, everything I see suggests that a deal wasn't struck, that there might be real, deep, resentment between Navarez and Gould. I think with some of the interactions that Navarez had with ADT and Wicker, I can see that she can be pretty tough if she doesn't like the way things are going. And, I think that doesn't always necessarily forge, win-win outcomes. So I think it's going to get a little messy, but I think as long as the PAC is sitting on the money, they can turn this into a war of attrition, meaning even if they've got a losing case, if they can drag it out perpetually, I think it's going to be a losing situation for the Mountain West. So I think the smart play for Navarez is take a step towards the PAC, convince the PAC to take a step, cut it in half, strike a deal, negotiate home and homes, and just put it in the rearview mirror for better, for worse. So I don't see the Mountain West winning in this, not the way that they expect to.
Okay, well, don't tell that to the Monty show. But hey,
so right there, Monty. I'm just shaking my head. I'm not going to say a word. I'm just going to shake my head when you say that name. That's all I'm going to say.
Oh, we know you got takes. We know you got opinions, Ted. We know.
I do have.
Well, September 9th, I want to say that seems to be the first date where this lack of a mediation is going to be a hearing in the court, September 9th. So we got a long time till then. This thing is going to be just the elephant in the room starting this football season. It's unfortunate, but like you said, I mean, there's a lot of money at stake and a lot of hurt feelings at stake. A lot of hurt feelings. So, hey, it is what it is. Football season, last season on the way out. We'll see how the Aztecs do. If you guys have been keeping track on sonsofmontezuma.com, we've been doing player previews, looking at our top Aztecs to keep an eye on in 2025. We are also going to launch some other team previews, full team previews of everybody in the Mountain West for this season coming up, because when it comes to on the field, it's gonna be a tricky one. I think you got Boise, UNLV, and you kind of got everybody else. Just say who's going to contend for this thing, who's going to take a real step forward and try to dethrone the Broncos. And UNLV is an interesting team because they got a new coach, new players, everything. So we'll see how that goes. But the Mountain West Media Days are tomorrow, kicking off. Wish I was a fly on the wall in there to check it out. But no, a lot of that stuff is pretty cookie cutter. A lot of that stuff is just introductions. It's just basic questions. Aside from whatever Gloria is going to say in that first opening address, I think everything else is just it's PR. It's let's represent the schools and the players and have some fun.
If I can say one thing,
sure,
I'll say this. Well, I've maybe said a few strong things. I'm really impressed with both Gould and Navarez. I think Navarez reacted to the big exodus pretty impressively. She backfilled the Mountain West with respectable programs, and I think that that's commendable. And I think anybody in her situation would probably make some aggressive moves, just as she has. So I took my hat to her for that. And at the same time, Gould, breathing new life into the Pac-12. I think these are two commissioners that have been dealt some very crazy hands, and both of them are, despite some of the friction, I think both of them have done some pretty impressive things.
Very well said, and I agree. I think they've both done. They're both been in some tough tough spots, and they're making the most out of what they
Exactly.
got.
Yep.
Ted, we got Deuce again, man.
Absolutely.
Again. What do you guys think in the chat? Let us know in the comments what you guys thought of Mr. McGovern out there on the East Coast. Appreciate your time, man. Really good insight. Look forward to hopefully reading something from you. Hopefully reading your thoughts, man.
Okay, well, we'll have to see where my next articles come from. Maybe you and I can talk about that.
We'll keep our fingers crossed.
Awesome.
Out there on the East Coast, man, you have a great night. I'm going to go through a couple of these little comments, and we'll square things away a bit. But have a great one.
All
Go
right,
Aztecs.
All right, go Aztecs.
All right, there you guys have it. How'd you guys enjoy that? I've always had some pretty interesting conversations with Ted. He's always been a very, very good friend of the show here. Of course, seeing him at tailgates and all that stuff when he got a chance to make it out here on the West Coast, some of the games, always very cool. So, hey, let us know in the comments. Okay, guys, I highlighted some of your guys' comments. I want to see what the chat is talking about just a little bit. Just a little. I want to entertain myself with some of the smack talk you guys have to say. Eddie O, he says, what's going on, Eddie O? Tulane and Memphis make this conference a lot more interesting. Okay, it would. That's ultimate get right there. Memphis. I don't know about Tulane. I'm kind of soured on Tulane, man. Academically, very good. Okay. Recruiting, very nice. You're dang near New Orleans. I mean, recruiting hotbed in the South. But I'm just not buying it. I don't want anything to do with Tulane and the Pac-12. I really don't. And that's no offense to any what are they, the Green Wave, something like that. No offense to them. I think they have the coolest mascot in college football, probably. And you know, I like that. But I don't really want them. I don't want that brand. I don't want that brand in the Pac-12. That's just how I feel. So, anyways, okay. Let's see who else had a comment here. Who else had a comment here that I liked? Paul PH. We have big guys on the offensive line now. 3 guys weighing 350 plus pounds. That should help the running game. Yeah, if they can move fast. I think that's going to be a big thing to see. You know, generally, I would have thought offensive linemen in this scheme would have been a little bit more agile guys, smaller guys. Not to say that these road graders aren't agile or quick on their feet. That's not what I'm saying. It's just one of those things. Hey, we got to see it. I wish I was there in fall camp in a practice to check it out. But yeah, that is a little bit of a head scratcher for me. But hey, if they can move, I think our running game is going to be deadly with Lucky back there. I really do. I think all Aztec Nation wants to see him get the rock. Of course, we highlighted a transfer that came in. He's a San Diegan as well, and in the running back room there. So we got a couple different running backs back there. Of course, I want to say Cam Davis transferred out, right? That was one of those that I was like, oh, really? Well, they must feel really, really confident in the running backs that we got coming in. But Lucky, I think, is going to have a big year. I want to say Christian Washington. Christian Washington is the transfer that's coming in from Helix. That's a Helix guy, right? So you're getting some local guys coming back, and I think that's going to be a sneaky 1-2 punch there. Lucky and Christian Washington, man. You heard it here. Okay. Who else had something? Who else had something interesting that I Fiend's tripping. Put the Mountain West in the poorhouse. No settling. Like, he really wants to burn the Mountain West down and just, insult to injury. He wants to see them just no more. Fiend, you are tripping, man. You didn't like the San Diego State off the front of the jersey. I don't know. I can't help you there, man. He said if they take that off, they should take the name off on the back of the jersey, dude. Come on, man. The players this year are fighting to earn their jersey numbers. You're going to make them fight to earn their last name on the jersey. Come on, Fiend. You're tripping. Well, that's going to do it. Appreciate everybody for joining the stream. Make sure you guys are sharing with other Aztec fans that you may know. Hit that like and subscribe button. It's how we keep this independent thing going. Of course, check out the online shop, sonsofmontezuma.com, all of our articles and previous podcasts, and of course, Swish League this Sunday back again. Swish League has been amazing already, guys. Check that out. All the games, they're live in the gym or 2 live stream games every Sunday. Of course, Swish League is San Diego's premier pro-am. On behalf of everybody else here, the Sons of Montezuma team, Aztec Football Media Days coming up. The season is here. Let's get it. See you guys next time. sonsofmontezuma.com. Go Aztecs. Peace.
Toss to him. Can he get the edge?